I was driving across country with my mum and sister when I was 16 and my sister was 20. It was late, but we were well rested still and alert. We were driving along an interstate and needed gas and a bathroom break, so we stopped at the only rest stop in 200 miles. There was a van full of teenagers on a road trip at the gas station, as well as a small grey car parked at the pump in front of us, with 2 young men standing still outside of it. When we got there, everything felt wrong. We'd been on the road for days and seen many rest stops at night and had never been afraid until then. My mum and sister went inside and I stayed in the car. I heard the teenagers say they were creeped out and couldn't get the pump to work and they left in a hurry. I was watching the car in front of us and the 2 men had not moved at all, not an inch. They weren't talking, they weren't on phones, they were just standing there still as stone. My sister and mum came running back out to the car, and when they got in, the 2 men slowly turned to look at us while not moving or pivoting the rest of their bodies, and I swear to fucking shit we all saw the same thing. They had eyes dark as pitch and empty, truly empty, not black, not reflecting any light at all, just a void. We sped out of there and didn't stop until we were in the next city. The worst thing about the entire experience? We couldn't find the place on any map. We knew exactly which spot on the interstate to look, and we couldn't find it on Google Maps or any paper map we had. We even asked locals about the creepy gas station out on that stretch of road and got only confused looks. We've traveled on that interstate since, and there is no rest stop. We were driving my friend's really old beat-up Subaru through a massive graveyard. We stopped and walked down a hill and came across a little pond. There was someone sitting on a rock on the other side of the pond. The figure was all black and we couldn't make out any features other than the fact it looked like a man who was wearing some old-style top hat. We stupidly waved and shouted, "Hi!" He didn't show any acknowledgement and continued sitting still on the rock. All of a sudden he jumped to his feet, started running to us on the water, and then vanished in thin water about halfway on the pond. My friends and I screamed and ran back to the car. The car wouldn't start, and we heard something banging on the back of the car. It wasn't a constant bang, but every few seconds or so we'd hear it. Nobody was outside from what we could see in the dark, but something was making a noise on the car. I opened my phone and started dialing my mum to come give us a boost, but I had no service. None of us had any cell service. The next 30 minutes were spent trying to get her car started. No banging was heard afterwards, but we felt this heavy pressure around us. Finally, the car started, and she hit the pedal to the metal. We sped out of the graveyard so fast. Immediately crossing the gates, all of our phones regained cell service. One thing I know for certain is that someone or something was out there, and it was not an animal or a human. I was home alone one night watching TV in the living room. I heard a knock on the door, but I ignored it. I thought it was just some kids playing a prank. The knocking continued, louder and more persistent. I got up and looked through the peephole, but I saw no one. I opened the door slightly and saw a pair of feet on the porch. They were wearing black shoes and white socks. I looked up and saw a man wearing a clown mask and holding a knife. He smiled and said, "Hello, do you want to play?" I slammed the door shut and locked it. I ran to the phone and dialed 911, but there was no dial tone. I realized the phone line had been cut. I heard the sound of glass breaking from the kitchen window. He was inside. I grabbed a baseball bat and ran to the bedroom, locking the door behind me. I heard him walking down the hall, humming a tune. He stopped at my door and knocked softly. "Are you there? I just want to have some fun," he said in a creepy voice. He started to kick the door, trying to break it down. I backed away from the door, holding the bat tightly. I prayed that someone would come and save me. He kicked harder and harder until the door finally gave way. He stepped into the room, grinning wickedly. He raised his knife and said, "Let's play." I swung the bat with all my strength, hitting him in the head. He fell to the floor, blood gushing from his skull. I dropped the bat and ran out of the room, hoping to find a way out. I saw a police car outside with sirens blaring and lights flashing. I ran to the front door and opened it, screaming for help. 2 officers rushed in, guns drawn. They saw the clown on the floor and handcuffed him. They told me they had received an anonymous tip about a suspicious person in the neighborhood. They asked me if I was okay, and I nodded, still shaking. They took me to their car and drove me to the station, where they questioned me about what happened. They told me that the clown was a serial killer who had escaped from a mental hospital. He had been targeting people who lived alone, dressing up as a clown and breaking into their homes. He had killed 6 people before me, all in gruesome ways. They said I was lucky to be alive. I don't know who tipped them off or why they chose me as his next victim. Maybe it was just a random coincidence, or maybe it was fate. All I know is that I will never forget that night or that face behind the mask.